Hey, awesome people. Mr. C here with you for another fractions video. Make sure if you learn anything new at all, click that like and subscribe button. Join us as we continue making math understandable and challenging. This video, we are going to be subtracting mixed numbers with like denominators with regrouping. This is going to be our teaching video. We are going to be using models in this video to show you how to take mixed numbers and subtract them when you have to regroup, okay? You will also find in the description below, I want to point this out to you, all of our 4th grade fractions and mixed numbers videos. You will see our 3rd grade videos and our 2nd grade fraction videos. All of those are located in the description below. Check those out. This video, like I said, we are going to be subtracting mixed numbers with like denominators when we have to regroup using models. This is the teaching video. Let's get started with a couple of examples. Well, ladies and gentlemen, before we take a look at this very first problem on the screen, what do we always say here at Math with Mr. C? We always talk about having a growth mindset. So remember, a growth mindset means that you're looking for challenges. You don't give up when you make mistakes. Our mistakes helps our brain grow, okay? Use your mistakes, find your mistakes, and use those to help you to get better. The more we practice, the better we will get, so stick with it. We've got 4 1/3 on the screen minus 1 2/3. And what we're going to be talking about in this video is what do we do when we have to regroup when we have a mixed number. And this is something that you already know how to do when it comes to normal subtraction for numbers. You already know how to regroup if we had like 72 minus 58, right? You know what you need to do to be able to regroup in order to be able to subtract. But what we're going to be doing is something very similar to what you already know how, but with fractions and with whole numbers. All right, and in this video specifically, we're going to be showing you that with models, because what we really believe here at Math with Mr. C and parents and teachers, another really important thing is that you can see what it looks like, okay? I don't really care that you're able to just solve this, okay? What I care about and what we need to understand is what does it look like when we subtract a mixed number and we have to regroup. Okay, that is what we're going to be talking about here. So let's take a look and just kind of think through this. We've got 4 1/3 and we're subtracting 1 2/3. Immediately what I'm noticing is that I have a whole number of 4 and a whole number of 1. I've got a fraction of 1/3 and a fraction of 2/3. And if you remember in our previous videos, and I'll link those in the description below as well, in our previous videos we talked about how to subtract this using models, and we've talked about how to subtract using kind of the old school strategies, okay? Both strategies are still applicable, meaning that you can still do both of those strategies to get you an answer even when you have to regroup. And that's what we're going to be showing you here. So what I want us to do is I want us to draw a model. So like we've done so many times here at Math with Mr. C, we are going to draw ourselves a model that is going to be 4 1/3. We're going to start off with the blue fraction. Here we go. So 4 1/3, I need to have 3 sections inside of it. So there's 3 sections. Remember, we're shading in the whole thing because this represents one whole. Okay, remember that. This represents one whole. And we're going to do that until we have 4 wholes. So keep going with it. There's one of them, 2 of them, 3 of them, and 4 of them. And again, I'm breaking each of them into thirds. The reason I'm doing that is because we already know that if we shade in the entire model, that represents one whole. And we also know that 3 out of 3, 3/3, is the same thing as one whole. And that is what we are representing here on the screen. So give me a second to finish coloring mine in here. So here's 1 hole, 2 holes, 3 holes, and 4 holes. Let's copy that and get, what do we need? A third represented here. So we're going to color in 1 out of the 3. So here we go. All right, so on the screen here, we've got 4 1/3. Double check and make sure that I have that correct. 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's a third. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be subtracting. We're going to be taking away 1 2/3. All right, so think about that for a second. If we are going to subtract 1 2/3, what would that look like? All right, what would that look like? That's what we're trying to understand. We want to be able to see what this looks like when we have mixed numbers and we have to regroup. So the reason that I know that we're going to have to regroup is I'm looking at these fractions here and I see that 1/3 minus 2/3. Okay, I'm going to write this here so you can see it. We've got 1/3 and we're going to be subtracting 2/3. So to do that, we're going to have to regroup. And where we're going to regroup at is going to be with this whole number 4. All right, so let me show you what we're talking about here in our model. I am going to mark out 1 2/3. I'm going to take away. I'm going to mark that out. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to mark out 1 whole. Okay, let's mark out 1 whole. I'm going to change to my marker here so it's bigger. All right, there's 1 whole. Now let's take away 2/3. Let's take away 2/3. Here's a third. And here's a third. Now hold on a second. Mr. C, how did you get this third? Why did you do that? Okay, think about it. I broke each of these models into thirds. You may be asking yourself, how did you know to do that, Mr. C? Well, I knew to do that because my fraction here was 1/3. I knew that this would make it a lot simpler on myself if I took my whole models and I broke them into thirds as well, because I knew that this model down here was only going to be shaded in 1/3. So I know that 1 whole equals 3/3. That's something that we know. That's part of that number sense. All right. So go back to what I just did. I took away another third because we needed to subtract 2/3. How did we do that? We regrouped this 1 whole. All right, this 1 whole. I'm going to erase a couple things here. This 1 whole here, because remember, this here technically, before we started subtracting, was 1 whole or 3/3. And what we just did is we just subtracted, we took away 1/3, and how many are still shaded in? 2/3. Okay, do you see that? That's what we're doing there. And the reason I love the models is because you don't have to do a bunch of like figuring out. You can draw a picture and then use that picture to make you think, okay, what does my answer actually mean? And so if we look at all of this and we count everything up here, let's see how much we still have shaded in. How much do we still have shaded in? Well, let's see. We've got 1 whole. We've got 2 holes. I don't see any more holes that we have left, so we've got 2 holes. Now let's look at how many thirds we have left? We've got 1/3, 2/3. And there's our answer. 4 1/3 minus 1 2/3 equals 2 2/3. So, couple things I want to point out. All right, couple things I want to point out. Each of these models represented 3/3, which equals 1 whole. Okay, these whole models all represented this. What we did was we subtracted 1 whole, that's where we marked out a whole, and then we subtracted 2/3. We subtracted 1/3, and then to be able to subtract here, we marked it out, right? We took it away, we took away 1/3, and then we had to realize how much do we have left. And to realize that, we took 3/3 minus 1/3, and that gave us 2/3. What did we do? We regrouped. All right, Mr. C, I keep hearing you say that word regroup, okay? What does that regroup mean? Regroup means that you're basically going to take a whole number and turn that into a whole fraction. All right, and that's what we did here. We took this whole number, the number 1, and we took that and we turned it into a whole fraction of 3/3. Okay, and you're going to see in this next problem, we're going to do it a little bit differently so you can kind of see it and kind of hopefully click a little bit for you, because this is a really great strategy. And again, we talk about all the time here at Math with Mr. C is being able to see the math that you are doing. Parents, teachers, this here is a great way to kind of get them comfortable with what we're doing with this regrouping. A lot of times regrouping can be a challenge to students because they just don't quite understand what that looks like. What does that mean? Drawing models is a great way to kind of introduce that. This is one way that I like to draw models. The next the next problem, I'm going to show you a different way I like to do it. But I think this is a really great way to kind of get them comfortable into what's going on. All right. Students, ask yourself where you're confused, what doesn't make sense, where are you stuck at. Rewatch this one. Stick with it. Remember, growth mindset. We look for challenges and we find our mistakes. Okay. With that being said, let's try another one. All right, next problem. We've got 2 2/4 minus 1 3/4. First thing I notice is that we've got whole numbers, 2 and 1, and then we've got fractions of 2/4 minus 3/4. And remember, one of the strategies that we already know how to do is by stacking these numbers on top of each other and subtracting. And the reason that we can't solve this immediately is because we can't subtract 3/4 from 2/4 without regrouping. If you had 2/4, you couldn't give me 3/4. You would have to regroup. And so that is what we're going to do. In order to do that, we're going to show you with a model. All right, so go ahead and draw 2 2/4 on whatever you have in front of you. Pencil, paper, maybe you've got a Kleenex in front of you. I'm not sure what you've got, but whatever you've got, go ahead and draw 2 2/4. Okay. Here is my whole number 2. All right, here's my whole number 2. And now let me get my fraction drawn. Get our fraction here. The fraction is 2/4, so we're going to need 4 equal-sized sections. Do the best I can here. 1, 2, 3, 4. How many am I shading in? Shading in 2 out of the 4. So there's 1, and there is 2. All right. So again, we've got 1 whole here. We've got 1 whole here, and we've got 2/4 here. Okay. So we're going to subtract 1 3/4. Okay, let's subtract this fraction because we know whenever we're using our standard strategy, when we're stacking them on top of each other, we know that we have to subtract the fractions first. Okay, so we're going to do the same exact thing here. We're going to take away the fractions first. So we need to take away 3/4. So let's see what we can do here. Here is 1/4. Here is 2/4. So we took away 2/4, but I don't see any more fourths on the screen here. What do y'all think? I subtracted 2/4. I need to subtract 3/4, but I don't see any more fourths on the screen. Hopefully that light bulb's going off in your head right now. And hopefully you're seeing why Mr. C loves to kind of draw his models to represent what the fraction is as well. Notice in my other example, we had a fraction that was in the thirds, right? We were breaking them into thirds. And so I broke every single one of my models into thirds because I knew that if I do that, it's going to help me to be able to see it. 1, it's going to help build my number sense. 2, but number 3 is going to make it a lot more efficient for me. It's going to be a lot more simple for me to be able to subtract. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take both of these whole numbers and I'm going to break them into fourths. How many fourths is that? That's 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 whole equals 4/4. I'm going to do the same thing up here because I want you to be able to see that. 4 sections, all 4 of them are colored in. 1 whole is equal to 4/4. Okay. We subtracted 2/4. How many more fourths do we need to subtract? 1 more. So let's do that. Whoops. Need my marker. There's another fourth. So that's 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. So we subtracted the 3/4. Now let's subtract 1 whole. And there's 2 different ways you could do this. I usually just go for the simplest way and I just subtract the whole fraction that I see, the whole model. Okay. You can do it this way and subtract the whole thing, or you can subtract 1 whole, which would also be what? 4 out of 4. Okay, so you could subtract 4 more of these fourths. Okay, again, that's another way you could do it. I like to do it this way. It helps my brain to be able to see it. Everybody's brains see math a little bit differently, and that's kind of cool. So here we go. Let's make sure I did everything correctly. I had 2 2/4. There was 1 whole, 2 wholes. There was 2/4. And I took away 1 whole. Okay, and I took away 3/4. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, let's see how much we have left over now that we have subtracted. We've got nothing here. We've got 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. And that is our final answer. 2 2/4 minus 1 3/4 equals 3/4. Parents, teachers, again, making sure students can see this math that they're doing is so important. All right, it is a really complex thing trying to think about 2 2/4 minus 1 3/4. But if we can draw pictures, if we can get students to draw, to use their fingers, that is a good thing, because once you master this, once these students master this part, they won't have to draw the pictures anymore, but they'll be able to see that in their head. Okay, students, do not skip this part. Make sure you can see what this looks like. All right, I don't care if you can solve this problem up here in 30 seconds. I really don't. What I care about is that you understand and you can see what that looks like. okay? Put in the time, put in the effort, draw your models. Once you've done this and you're getting really comfortable, then you can go back to our standard strategies of just stacking the numbers on top, subtracting, and regrouping, okay? 2 examples here for you. When you're ready, make sure you check out in the description below our practice problems video. I've got a couple more examples I want to go over with you, so check that out. Also, a quick plug as well. Parents, teachers, if you're looking for your students to get a little bit more practice, have them check out IXL. It's a program that I used in my classroom. I absolutely loved it. It helps students get more practice and mastering their skills, but also it helps them keep track of their learning. I will also put in the description below a link to a 7-day free trial. Check that out. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you learned anything new at all, click that like and subscribe button. Join us as we continue making math understandable and challenging. That is all I have for you today. Mr. C, out.